Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it. It's AFR LSU, your home for daily content on your favorite team, Fighting Tigers of LSU. And we're proud to be presented by BetUS, where this football season, get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use the promo code YouTube150. Now, enjoy the video. Final step out of conference for LSU this weekend. They'll welcome in the South Alabama Jaguars, and a Baton Rouge native, Major Applewhite, the head coach of the Jaguars, will bring his team into Tiger Stadium for a night kickoff. JT Crabtree will be in that number. He's the radio voice of the South Alabama Jaguars. He's good enough to join us for a couple of minutes here. JT, we appreciate the time, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on here today.
No, it's our pleasure. Let's start with Major's homecoming. We've talked about it a good bit. It's a nice story. Give me a sense of what it's like being around Major this week, coming back to Baton Rouge.
He does not want me to say a thing about him coming back to Baton Rouge.
Why?
No, he's just a big guy about, it's not about him. It's about the football team. It's about the student athletes. And, sure, he's going to be excited about going back home. He grew up going to LSU games, and he talked about it on Monday about sitting in the south end zone, going to games and at 7-on-7 camps, throwing on the field in Tiger Stadium. And so, he's going to be excited to be back home, of course. It's just he doesn't want it to – it's not about the Major Applewhite homecoming. It's about South Alabama having an opportunity to prove themselves against an SEC opponent.
Well, let's talk about how they might have an opportunity to do that. Now, in keeping an eye on South Alabama, knowing that this game was going to happen, there's a little bit sort of Jekyll and Hyde there. I mean, I watched them give up 52 and pretty poor performance against North Texas on their home field. And then I was also watching last Thursday when they went and bludgeoned Appalachian State up in Boone. So which is closer to the real version of South Alabama?
Yeah, it's a great question, isn't it? I think what we've seen the last 2 weeks is more of what we expected from South Alabama this coming into this season. It was a young defense that really didn't play with each other coming into the season, and so there was a huge adjustment period for the 9 new starters we had between injuries, graduation, and transfers. We really only have 2 guys that played significant snaps a year ago. And so this defense is finally starting to come together a little bit and gel. And then offensively, this is exactly what we thought this offense could be. With Major Applewhite being here the last 3 years as our offensive coordinator, we knew that we could do some dynamic things. With Gio Lopez being now a true dual-threat quarterback that we've never really had in our program's history. And keep in mind, we started football in 2009, and we've only been FBS since 2012, so still a very young program. But the fact that we were able to kind of have that dual-threat guy, use some different things in our offense, I think that's really paying dividends for us. And I think what we've seen these last 2 games, and yes, I know 87 against an FCS, whatnot, but like you said, last week App State dropping 48 at their place. That's something that doesn't happen in the Sun Belt Conference, and I think what we've seen the last 2 weeks is more of what we'll see moving forward.
We'll get right back to the video, but I want to take a quick second to remind you again about our great partner this football season over at BetUS. By now, you know I love to sports bet. I do it every day. If you want to join me, make sure you use BetUS. Right now, awesome offer. You get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. It's when you use the promo code YouTube150. Let's make a bet together. It's this easy. You pull up BetUS. Let's see your football tab right there. Hit the drop down. There's the college football tab. And I'm going to go look for the LSU South Alabama game. We know that it's all chronological, so we're going to go down to that 6:45 kick for LSU and South Alabama on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Tigers, we know, are a 3-touchdown favorite. So what we're going to do when we find that game, here it is right there. It's actually up to 22 right now. LSU this year, 0-4 against the spread. I'm a firm believer that you bet a trend and you keep betting until you lose because you win a bunch and you only lose once. Well, LSU's 0-4 against the spread. I think they're going to beat the South Alabama Jaguars, but you better believe I'm going to take all 22 of those points. So we come over here. We'll place our wager. It's going to ask me to confirm. It's this easy. You hit the confirm button, and there is my confirmation ticket. South Alabama plus 22, but I do like the Tigers to win. If you want to join me, you can do it at BetUS. Great partners of ours right here. Again, 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two deposits, up to $2,000. Use that promo code YouTube150. Enjoy the rest of the video. Let me ask you about Lopez. How much of a running threat is he? Because that's something that did hurt LSU when they played South Carolina and their running quarterback Lenore Sellers.
He's a true running threat. We'll run some design QB power with him. You'll see some read option stuff mixed in there as well. He's a true guy that's going to tuck the football and go. We really, again, we haven't had that in the past. We've had some guys that could move if he needed to. But he's a true threat to tuck that football and go. He ran one off a week ago for 50 yards. He had another 30-yard touchdown mixed in there too. And so this is a guy that can really tuck the football and go. And as a redshirt freshman, he's looked unfazed. He's looked comfortable out there. And it's really exciting to see what he's doing already as a redshirt freshman.
What about on the line of scrimmage, JT? Because it's typically where, when you have programs like this, you start to see a little bit of the disparity, right? It's just the size and the physicality at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest thing for South Alabama to try and kind of figure out this weekend is our offensive line, to their credit, has held their own so far this year. We've looked okay in that regard. Defensively, we haven't gotten a ton of pressure yet this year. And so, of course, matching up with Campbell on one side and Jones on the other, and, of course, the guys in the middle, too, it's going to be a really tough task for us. We're kind of undersized at defensive line. We run a 4-2-5, but you'll see some 3-3-5 mixed in there with an edge guy kind of floating around the middle sometimes. We used a lot of stunts last week at Appalachian State, and that seemed to keep them off balance. You'll probably see that again this weekend, I would expect, just because it worked so well last week against the Mountaineers. So we'll see. The up front is where we dominated last week against Appalachian State. Up front is going to be a huge determining factor of if we can have some success coming up this weekend.
I do want to add, let me stay on the offensive side of the ball for just a quick second, because I did want to ask about Fluff Bothwell. Aside from the name, which has gotten a lot of attention this week, he's clearly been a very productive back as well. Can you sort of tell us stylistically what he's like?
What's really impressive to me about him so far is his body control. He's not the fastest guy out there. He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'10", 220, but he'll run through arm tackles. You saw maybe the second touchdown he had last week at Appalachian State. He was starting to get cut down. He spun off a guy, put a hand on the ground, stayed on his feet, and got in the end zone. That's what he does the best, in addition to being patient. He's a true freshman. He leads all FBS freshmen rushing yards and rushing touchdowns this year, and he's so patient behind his blocks. He can sit there, wait for something to open up. He's not going to just get the ball and explode. He can make things happen by waiting an extra tick, and really that's where he's been his best this year, is having an opportunity to figure it out, wait for those blocks to develop, and then go.
JT Crabtree is with us, radio voice of the South Alabama Jaguars, on Twitter at JT Crabtree USA, if you want to give him a follow. Flip it over to defense. We talked a little bit about the line. Is there a strength, perceived or otherwise, an undoubted strength there on the defensive side for USA?
I think for us, we didn't return a single start at linebacker from a year ago. And then the majority of our defensive backfield either graduated or transferred as well. But in spite of all that, we've got some guys back on the defensive line. Our strength this year has been our defensive secondary. And I know the passing defensive numbers don't look great. North Texas absolutely torched us week 1. But since then, we've played really, really well defensively in the passing game. A guy, Jordan Scruggs, who's our Husky, which to LSU fans, that's kind of similar to the nickelback, the star position that the Tigers use. Scruggs is the guy that's been used in the box and run support, out wide and pass, and he's been tremendous. He's a former D2 walk-on. He's our 4th school in 4 years for him, and he's right now the current Sun Belt Conference Player of the Week, Defensive Player of the Week, because he had a 96-yard interception return that was, a 14-point flip right there on the play that he made. He's third on the team in tackles so far this year. He's been great. And then we've had some injuries with Ricky Fletcher, a cornerback. He's probably our best defensive back. He hasn't played this year, and he's going to be out this weekend as well. So a true freshman, Amarian Fortenberry's played really well. He's played much better than we expected, especially this early in his year. Jaden Voisin at free safety has been kind of our vocal leader. He's the green dot for our defense as well, and he's a guy that, as free safety, he's not going to be up top in pretty much any position. He's going to be down in the box as kind of a third or fourth linebacker in some situations. He's primarily a run support guy. He'll drop in some zone every now and then, but he's our vocal leader of the defense. So defensive backfield, probably our strength. We have some veterans up front on the defensive line with Kevius Thomas, Maurice Strong's on his 7th year of football, and a transfer from Liberty, Akil Washington as well. So we've got some good pieces here or there, but overall I think the defensive backfield's been our best.
Yeah, just when you look at the venue as well, this is something the South will do typically once a year, right? Go play one of these Power 5 non-conference games. Oklahoma State last year. I think a lot of people might remember that UCLA game a couple of years ago. It was a 1-point game. UCLA won by a point out there in the Rose Bowl. Tennessee, Nebraska, some of the other games that South has played there in these big venues. How typically does the program or this team approach the opportunity to go play in one of these games against a Power 5 in their building?
With the exception of the Tennessee matchup in 21, where we just couldn't handle their tempo, we've played pretty well against Power 5 and Power 4 teams over the last couple of years. You mentioned Oklahoma State last year. We went to Stillwater, and we're kind of spinning our wheels a little bit. We were 1-1, hadn't played well, and then we roll out there and we dominated Oklahoma State. And look what the Cowboys turned out to be. You mentioned the UCLA game. It was a 1-point game because we ran a fake field goal with about a minute left with a 2-point lead. We didn't get it, and UCLA marched down the field and got a last-second field goal. And that was a game, honestly, that we should have won. And so you mentioned the Nebraska matchup. We held a Scott Frost team that was sputtering. We stayed within 2 touchdowns of them, and they pulled away late. And so it's a team that's not afraid of the challenge, which is really impressive considering, we don't have a ton of football history. We haven't gotten that huge defining win. Yes, we have the Oklahoma State win, which is great. We beat Mississippi State in 2016. We beat a ranked San Diego State in 2016 as well. But we still haven't had that true huge win as a program. And so to say that we haven't had those wins, but still to be competitive when we've matched up in these big environments and these bigger names and bigger conferences, we've held our own for the most part.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. JT, if there is a blueprint for Major Applewhite's squad to maybe get that marquee win on Saturday night, what does it look like?
It looks, on the defensive side, we've got to eliminate the explosive passing plays. Our offense, I think, will have some opportunities to score with the way LSU's played defense this year and now the injuries that they've accounted as well. And so I think for South Alabama, they've got to make sure they don't give it up over the top. We've done pretty good in run defense, allowing 120 on the ground per game, but we've given up 271 through the air. And guys like Kyron Lacey and Aaron Anderson are probably going to give us fits. Guys like that have given us problems, especially stuff over the middle, some quick ends and slants. And so that's where I think the key is for South Alabama. If they want to get that marquee win, pull off the big upset on Saturday, that's what they got to do.
He is JT Crabtree, radio voice of the South Alabama Jaguars, on Twitter at JT Crabtree USA if you want to give him a follow. JT, safe travel to Baton Rouge, man. Have a great call. Thanks for a couple minutes today.
Appreciate it, man. You called me JT the whole segment, so you could have called me much worse.
I flubbed it at the end of the last segment. I was like, damn it, did I just go dyslexic in my brain? No, and by the way, it helps that it's on the screen, so I had it the whole time. Thanks, man. We appreciate the time.
Appreciate it. Jay's up and go, Jags.
Thanks so much for watching the video. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video, and remember to support BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150.